You're listening to Healthcare Now Radio. Stand by for This Just In, the latest in healthcare innovation and technology trends with your HIT advisor, Justin Barnes.
Thank you for tuning in and welcome to This Just In. I'm your host, Justin Barnes. In these half-hour segments, I'll bring you the latest advancements in healthcare, strategy, innovation, and public policy. As always, we're broadcasting from the This Just In studios on the Business Radio X network, as well as the Healthcare Now radio network. For this episode, my 107th episode, we're going to speak with an industry colleague, Terry Macaleer, President, U.S. Market of Orion Health. Welcome to the show, Terry.
Thanks, Justin. Appreciate your opportunity to have me on the show this morning. Thanks.
No, thank you very much. So we haven't had the pleasure of meeting, but I believe we've both been in the industry for a long time. So, but before we dive into all the good things that we probably have in common in health IT and healthcare in general, tell us a little bit about your background. Where'd you grow up? Go to college? Start your career?
Well, a lot of my colleagues will tell you I haven't grown up, but I was raised in suburban Pennsylvania and went from there to Princeton University and graduated from there and went right into health IT. And I've been in it ever since.
Excellent. So what company did you start off with?
It was called Shared Medical Systems.
Sure.
I actually started there before I graduated from college. They had no customers. They had no product that worked. They had an idea. And if you look at what they would call that idea today, it's a SaaS-based offering for healthcare IT.
I remember it.
It was remote hosted. The customers owned no software, no hardware. They paid a monthly service fee. And we grew it to $1 billion before we sold it.
Yeah. SMS. I remember SMS vividly in the mid 90s. That's great. I was with HBO and Company at the time. So. Horsham? Was it Malvern, Pennsylvania or Horsham, Pennsylvania? Malvern?
Malvern, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Excellent. That's terrific. So you're also with a company that I have a strong affinity for. Obviously, I love the SMS guys and the SMS team. They were fantastic. And I remember them, back in the day, and oh boy, Graham King and a bunch of those guys. But you also worked with Eclipsys, right? What was your role there? And tell us about your time there.
Well, interesting story about Eclipsys. I was at SMS, and we could see where the market was headed. From a technology standpoint, it was time to get off the mainframe and get on to what at the time in the mid 90s was the hot new technology called client server.
Yep.
And we wanted to convert SMS from mainframe to client server, and the chairman wouldn't go for it. So one of the founders of SMS and I left SMS, and together we formed Eclipsys. And our notion was pretty simple. We thought it was time that technology would allow us to put it between the physician and the patient at the point of care. So we founded the company on the notion of building computerized physician order entry with a robust clinical decision support system with it and take that to market. So it was the first thing we built. So we built a product that could do that extraordinarily well. And we had a really good run. The first 2 years, nobody wanted it. So it was a little difficult, but it gave us the time to really mature the product. And then when the Institute of Medicine came out and said, oh, we're killing 100,000 patients a year due to preventable medical mistakes, all of a sudden we were selling them like hotcakes. We couldn't install them fast enough. We ended up in all the academic medical centers. It was a great run.
Yeah, no, I remember Java Beans. Was that where the technology? Did you guys use Java back in the day? Am I right?
We did. Yeah, we'd use Java Beans. We did a lot of technology, but it was a great run because the competitors tried to bolt on CPOE, if you let me call it that, under their EMRs, and as a result, they couldn't do half the stuff we could do.
Right.
We had a really good run.
Yep. And what year did you leave Eclipsys?
It was about 2000, end of 2000, 2001.
Okay.
We did an IPO in 1998, and I had a 2-year covenant on it.
Yep.
Late 98. So pretty much 2 years in a day, I retired. I tell people, I looked in the book and it says, if you've had 2 IPOs in your life, you must retire. So I did.
That's fantastic.
And I moved to Scottsdale and I was playing golf.
That's fantastic. I've actually only had one IPO under my belt, so I certainly have another one in me. I would agree. So that's excellent.
Yeah.
So obviously, congratulations on the new post with Orion, and we will certainly dive into that. But I also like to tackle, the thought leadership. I know that you have a lot, obviously, in healthcare, being a true veteran from the industry, and our industry is evolving, and we all know some of the maturations that we're going through, the directions that we're taking. But I would love to get your take on value-based care and how you see the market evolving here.
Well, that's a question a lot of people are asking. Mm-hmm. Nobody has a crystal ball.
Right.
But I have had a lot of success anticipating the market.
Yep.
And building products that mature about the time the market matures. So I do have a vision of where I think value-based care is going. If you take it to its extreme, it basically says you got to keep the consumer at home and healthy. Keep them home, keep them healthy is kind of the mantra. Mm-hmm. So how do you do that is the real trick. And the vision I have for a physician, whether it's 5 years from now or 3 years or 7 years, I'm a physician, I'm in my office, and I don't have a waiting room full of patients
right.
Waiting to see me. And I don't have 3 physician assistants that are teeing them up for me to spend my 12 minutes with them. I'm at my desk, and I've got this huge population health engine that's given me the 20, 25 alerts and notifications today of consumers that need some kind of intervention. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they're going to end up in the ED or the operating room or whatever. So my physician assistants are reaching out to do interventions to prevent these people from getting sick. And so it's a much different model. And to do that, you need what people today are calling big data, but a lot of people don't realize what that means.
Right.
People today think big data is all this clinical data and all this claims data. That's about 10% of what you're going to need. So you need a system to be able to hold 10 times that amount of data. And so from a healthcare IT position, that's where the market needs to get to, where they can really scale up to have that kind of data. It's not just clinical and claims, but it's social data and all kind of other data points that you need to keep your patient or consumer, keep them home, keep them healthy.
Yeah, I actually could not agree more. I sit on a couple of boards, and that's the direction that we're going, even outside of the U.S. market. So it's refreshing to hear it from you. So what are some of the best practices? I mean, what is a practical next step? My show, This Justin Radio, is about really best practices, practical next steps that anybody in healthcare can make or do or take to be successful. So what are some of the things when you say, this big data and setting this all up, what are 2 or 3 things that an average health system or even physician practice should do or could do next to be successful, or at least begin in the right direction or stay in the right direction?
Well, they need to go down the path of creating that, what I call super big data database. So you need to get a platform in place today that can do some of the stuff you need for quality measures and HEDIS reporting and performance measures and that kind of stuff, and some population health stuff. But you need to have a platform that's going to be able to handle this vision 5, 6, 7 years from now. Most of the systems today are built on technology, relational databases, hierarchical databases that won't support that. So get yourself aligned with a healthcare IT vendor that's got a platform built for that new value-based care world that could scale up and get your workflows today all automated so that as the market matures, you don't have to rip things out and start over again.
No, that's excellent. So what would you say for, I guess that's probably, recommended across all markets, but after you set up, say, a big data platform and you have access to, what I say is actionable intelligence, how do you, obviously you recommend doing, segmentation, you got to do patient segmentation, you've got to look at disease states, you got to look across, what best practices can you implement, using technology, looking at, again, certain segments of your population that you need to slice out, that you need to manage differently. Chronic care, obviously a significant issue, managing multiple chronic conditions within, patient bases and so forth. What are some of your thoughts there? Diving a little bit deeper.
Well, you're going to be doing that stuff, but you can do a lot of that today, right? But what the future is going to hold is you're going to have other kinds of data you don't have today, whether it's social data,
right,
whether it's, the data from your wearables, the data from your local gym, how often you've been to the gym. There's all kind of other data points that you're going to need over time. So yeah, you can do this. A lot of people do that stuff today.
Right.
Keep track of my diabetes patients and segment my CHF patients. But when you get a lot more data points, then you're going to have a lot more interventions that you can do to keep people healthy. I mean, if you look at our market today, if you're really, really, really sick, you want to be in the U.S.
Right.
If you don't want to get sick, live somewhere else, right? I mean, if you look at where we stack up worldwide in our healthcare system, I don't know, last time I looked, we were 22 or 25 or something.
Yes.
Yet we spend more than anybody else. So other places have figured this out, and we need to figure it out. And if we can get to the vision I described and how a physician's going to work down the road, I think we can teach the world how to do healthcare instead of the other way around.
Right. No, actually, you bring up a great point. I'm glad we kind of dove in deeper there, because all that social data is going to be key to a person's individual health record. And how do we manage that? How do you consume that? How do you manage that, view that, utilize that to not only enhance the patient's life, allow them to thrive in their health, but then also you thrive as a care provider. You thrive as a payer for that matter. So excellent points.
Well, yeah, if you think about it, what does a physician need today to make a living? She needs a continuous supply of sick people.
Right.
Well, what if what a physician needed to make a decent living was a continuous supply of healthy people? That's a vision that we need to get to.
That's fantastic. Agree. So what drew you to this new post at Orion?
Well, we talked a little bit about eclipses, where I was able to, not I, but we were able to anticipate the market by a couple of years and kind of gut it out for a couple of years until the market matured and we were there for it. I see a similar opportunity here at Orion Health. I see the same kind of same level of transformation coming into the healthcare system that's going to require new and innovative HIT solutions. And when I look at where I think the market's going, and when I look at what Orion says their strategic vision is, I see those two absolutely intersecting at the right point in time. So I thought that vision and strategy was spot on to where I think the market's going. And the company's got a number of those pieces already put together. And if Orion can execute over time, they're going to have a solution that's going to be somewhat dominant in that new world of value-based care.
So yeah, let's dive into that a little bit. And I don't want to certainly an Orion commercial here, but I do want to know more about Orion's strategy in that, because actually I don't know Orion too well. Certainly know the brand; they have a fantastic brand. But what's going to be your key focus here in the U.S. market?
Well, there's a couple of target markets that we're very good at, and we need to continue to evolve in those markets as the healthcare system changes. The HIE market is very strong for us. The ACO market is very strong for us. We've made some real inroads with the payer market. Of course, Orion is very well versed in its interoperability, right? So that helps us in all those markets gather the kind of data we need. So those are the real focus right now. That doesn't say it won't evolve over time, but that's the focus right now. So we're building systems with the market's going to 1, 3, 4 years down the road, and we're delivering stuff that's got a lot of value today.
Excellent. So for those just tuning in, we're speaking with Terry Macaleer, Orion Health's new president for the U.S. market. So Terry, let's dive a little bit into one of your passions around precision medicine, and what's the viability in the market today for precision medicine? And basically, how do you convince patients and providers that now is a time to embrace the concept, because they have so much in front of them, they have so much that they're managing. But I personally know precision medicine is a great technology and innovation in the future of healthcare. But how do we, what's your thought on it, and how do we get it in front of patients and providers better?
Well, I don't think there's a huge market for it today, but if you want to get to where value-based care takes you, and you want to keep them home and keep them healthy, it's going to be fundamental. Because as we all know, these drugs come out, and 20% of the population is going to have an adverse reaction or no reaction and get sicker, or have an adverse reaction and get even sicker yet. So that physician is going to want to be able to tell ahead of time, I don't want to give this patient the best practice med because of the precision medicine data that I have here. And more people are getting their DNA analyzed and their genomes done. So again, you need a platform that can store all that data. And I don't think very many of the current big data HIT companies have a platform big enough to store that kind of data.
No, very, very true. And I agree that it's may not, the viability may not be 100% there today, but I do know that, a lot of my peers, even on the patient side, but then also my peers on the healthcare side, the provider side, really are marching in this direction. We can, I think, personally, I've just seen how we can sharpshoot healing, wellness through understanding our DNA, through understanding our bodies better, using, I believe it's the definition of precision technology, because I have a very broad definition. I think that when we start focusing in on the patients and we are slicing and dicing data, we're slicing and dicing treatments, we're really, kind of honing in, with crosshairs on how our bodies operate individually, not as a mass. But we start to understand, again, our DNA sequences, what drugs work with us, what drugs really do not, what allergies that we have, even the whole gluten aspects. I think we create wellness fairly quickly, and we create health much more quickly than ever before. And I consider a lot of that under the world of precision medicine. I have a personal definition, but.
Yeah, I would agree. And I have a personal story about that as well.
Please.
I just spent about 8 or 9 months in a relaxing mode. Mm-hmm. I was in the gym 3 days a week with a personal trainer, and I got about as healthy as I've been in the last 10 or 15 years. I went to my physician, and he's like, wow, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. But my best practice says somebody your age and your body weight, you need to be on a statin. Your cholesterol is fine.
Yeah.
But best practices, and I assume that meant his performance measures, right?
Yep.
You need to be on I need to prescribe a statin for you. But my cholesterol is fine.
Right.
And the bottom line was, my DNA didn't need that statin, right? I had a DNA that was not typical. So he prescribed a statin. I went to the pharmacy and I bought it, and it's been on the shelf ever since. I'm not taking a single pill.
Yeah.
But the precision medicine could have trumped that best practice.
Yes.
And saved a lot of waste.
Yep.
And how many people like me would have actually taken those pills? Many of them.
Most.
So I think precision medicine's got a real role here to play.
Yep. No, I agree. And I have a personal story even from last week where my 93-year-old grandmother was admitted to the ER, and I actually had to hop on a plane and go up and visit her. That's actually why our interview was a little bit delayed. But bottom line is their best practice told them to give her this very strong morphine. But all she really had was indigestion through some bad food that she ate. But they over-treated her. And I get it. And this is just part of, part of this is defensive medicine. Part of this is trying to, keep your satisfaction ratings and comforting my grandmother. But what actually happened after that, and thankfully I was there, was, significant issues of dealing with a very strong opioid in your body. And obviously, constipation and so forth. And a 93-year-old woman, that actually scares them. So actually, their best practice was not very good, and that certainly did not bode well for her body. And so I think we're both on the same page where we can be doing a lot better, and precision medicine is going to do wonders for our country and probably save us billions and billions and billions of dollars and billions on one side, but then even billions and billions of dollars of side effect issues on the other side. So, very, very hopeful there.
It's just going to take some really big data systems to be able to support that, and they will evolve. The market will find a way to roam.
Yeah, I completely agree. So it actually naturally leads us into another conversation. I know that you've got some thoughts here as well on regulatory policy. What do you think the effects or any hindrances on precision medicine can come from regulatory policy? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think regulatory policy can get in the way of best practices, can get in the way of precision medicine. And the example I just gave you of a physician chasing the performance measures,
right,
which is really chasing the dollar, which they should do, can intersect with good precision medicine and good healthcare. Now, admittedly, those performance measures aren't value-based care. It's part of the transition to try and get there. But it's kind of in the way of a lot of the progress we could make in how we deliver healthcare. Yep. Especially if you consider the vision I've played, yep. Performance measures could really be a problem. The real performance measure needs to be how healthy are they?
Right.
Not did you give them this drug for that diagnosis or did you do this for that, but what did you do to keep them healthy? That should be the performance measure. So the regulatory stuff, I think, is going to be in the way for a while.
Yeah, no, I agree. I actually spent 15 years on Capitol Hill, and I couldn't agree more. That was a full-time job educating, and then navigating policy, but then also educating on what policy works, what policy is going to get in the way. It was a blessing to be there, but I'm very happy I'm not there any longer. But let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned population health being a core focus for Orion, and this is a competitive market. So, with EHRs offering, onboard patient population features and features like that, how do you make Orion stand out in this really crowded market and with a lot of crowded messaging?
Well, it's pretty easy, actually. If you look at the EMR vendors, they're trying to bolt on population health. They've got conflicting priorities. They've got an EMR business that's huge that they've got to continue to feed with more and more R&D, more and more research, more and more resources, and they're going to bolt on a population health thing. But a lot of the current customers that I see out there are saying, I'd like to have a nice agnostic system that takes data from all EMRs and all payers and all other sources that I can get and put it on a platform that'll work. So I think the differentiation is pretty simple. You need an agnostic population health source so that you can be more nimble in population health than an EMR vendor who's got conflicting priorities. And you can be much more agnostic in terms of your interoperability.
Yeah, no, excellent. So you mentioned crystal ball earlier in the show, and so let's look into your crystal ball, your HIMSS 18 annual conference crystal ball. It's coming up in several months, but a lot of us are planning for it now. It's going to be in lovely Las Vegas. But what do you see as the main or new resonating themes that we're going to see this year? I assume HIMSS is always on your schedule, at least when you're in the industry. You went to the HIMSS annual conference?
Yeah, I've been to a dozen or so. I didn't go last year, but I've been most before that, most of them. Yeah, been to a lot of them. Okay. And I mean, what's hot today with healthcare IT? Of course, security is hot.
Right.
That's a big one.
Yep.
So I expect to see a lot about that. I think the pop health and with precision medicine needs to be a focus. I'd be surprised if that's not a big hitter there. Mm-hmm. It seems to be, what's going on. And that all depends on how many of the health systems have ACOs. Some do, some don't. A lot of the ACOs are independent, so don't know how much play you'll get there.
Yep. No, I think you're. Yeah. Yeah, I think I agree with you. And I think we're going to see more. We touched on machine learning and artificial intelligence last year. I think we're going to see a lot more this year and evolutions in that. Alexa is really picking up steam. I know companies like Lenovo and others have been embed some really cool innovations. You already mentioned in kind of on the outskirts, but really the bedless hospital in a way. And I have a think tank coming up here and about 50 thought leaders coming together to talk about, these future trends in value-based care and connected health and virtual care. And one of them is the bedless hospital. And but then back to what you started off the show with is how do you get paid for a bedless hospital? And that is really where a lot of the policy comes into play. And we're actually going to have some of those talks at the annual conference this year. We're actually going to host a think tank there at the conference. But I think it actually touches very well into some of the areas that you've already brought up. So I think you're spot on.
Well, it is a bit of a dilemma because a number of health systems have tried to create a health plan, and they find out that's a lot harder road than they thought.
Yep.
So being a health plan isn't necessarily the answer to how you're going to make money keeping them healthy, but it's going to have to evolve over time.
Yeah, I'm actually that's one of the big participants in my think tank next month is UPMC, and they are a payer and also a provider. So that's exactly, what they're going to be speaking on and giving their 2 cents. So I agree with you there.
At the same time, Northwell just bailed out of their plan. They're shutting it down.
Yeah, actually,
and that's a huge point.
Yeah, Northwell actually will be there as well at my think tank, and so I'm going to have them kind of talk about where they are and kind of how they got to where they are. So no, I'm glad you brought that up. So we have about a minute left, but I love this question. I always ask this of all my guests to close out the show. What is your favorite place to get or be inspired?
Actually, it's Sedona, Arizona.
Oh, yeah.
When I lived here before, I was up there about every 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And now that I'm back here, I'll be up there probably this weekend.
That's fantastic. It's a beautiful place. I mean, hiking and just some great resorts and great food, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, we do a lot of hiking up there. We've hiked about every trail and every mountain there is up there. Just love it.
Terrific. Well, Terry, great to have you as my guest today, and I truly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join the show.
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed it.
Thank you. We'll have to have you back as well, and hopefully I'll see you at HIMSS 18, if not sooner.
I'll be there.
Excellent. And thanks everyone for listening today and joining us. Please tune in weekdays, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific. As always, you can track me on Twitter at HIT Advisor and use the hashtag #ThisJustIn so we can respond to your comments from the show. In addition, all my content's always posted at my website, justinbarnes.com. Thanks everyone. Have a terrific week.